chicken and waffles feels so good.
They have chicken and waffle here?
You can smell it. It has to be. If it's not that, I don't know what it is. It smells like chicken.
Well, check what they
I can't believe we're doing this. Stupid.
Welcome to For Your Amusement, a theme park podcast that aims to exhaustively evaluate the world's most popular theme park attractions to determine if they are world class. I'm Ryan Bergara.
I'm Byron Marin.
And for this episode's featured attraction, we'll take a peek behind the massive doubt that Universal pulled by replacing a beloved attraction with whatever the Simpsons ride is, located in Universal Studios Hollywood and Orlando. And as always, go ahead and like and subscribe to this podcast if you're listening to it, or if you're watching it over on youtube.com/watcherpodcast. Go ahead and like and subscribe there. It helps us keep making this silly show, and we need the help. Anyways, we've finally done it. We are finally covering The Simpsons.
Only a matter of time.
The ride that we actually have a world-class test based off of for the wrong reasons. It's finally happening. And normally we would have a guest explain why we chose this ride, but we have no guest today. I didn't think we wanted to put a guest through whatever we're about to do. Once again, we're going to try not to be too negative, because we don't like being too negative on this podcast. We love rides. That's why we made this podcast. But we don't have to love every ride. And folks, this is one of those rides, for me at least.
Hey, you know what? With our rubric, any ride has a chance.
That's true. Well, that's true. We'll see where it scores in the rubric. We never run these rides through the rubric up top or before the episodes, just because out of pure curiosity for the scientific exercise of it all. Byron, what is your first impression of The Simpsons ride?
Okay, this would have been in either the summer of 2010 or 2011. I remember it happening in July. And if anyone is out there is familiar with Universal Studios Hollywood in July, you could probably already tell that
Torrid heat.
I didn't have the best of experiences. It was an extremely crowded day.
Yep.
It was, I believe it was like a college friend of mine's birthday party.
Nice.
Who really wanted, he was in film school, stuff like that. Got to do Universal Studios Hollywood.
Yeah.
Packed to the brim. And I think we waited in this queue for, I'd say like an hour and a half.
It's in the valley,
and
it's hot.
This was a ride, I believe, though, it opened a couple years prior, so it's still like relatively new. It really sticks out to you because it's like kind of like the backbone of Universal Studios Hollywood.
At that point it was, yes.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is before
Harry Potter and all that.
From what I recall is Springfield wasn't complete at the time, because I think that took some time for them to build all the Springfield stuff around.
2015,
there was
is when that opened.
Because I ate some shitty fried chicken at like some Doc Brown's restaurant, I think either before or after.
Yeah, they used to have Doc Brown's chicken. I think it was very close to where the Quickie Mart is now, because Quickie Mart used to be a Back to the Future gift shop, and then next to that was Doc Brown's chicken, which also was not very good, by the way.
And I didn't know at the time what this ride was. It seemed like it was kind of advertised as a new ride and stuff like that. I had never been on Back to the Future, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, which that's something I'm going to have to bring into your first impressions. But so, it's like kind of advertised as like, it kind of looks like it might be a roller coaster or something of that sort. You know, you got the Homer Simpsons in the roller coaster car, like at the facade, like in the front by the signage. And then like that was, I think this ride was like my first real taste of like Universal screens.
Yes.
And I just remember after that hour plus wait, feeling insanely disappointed, insulted. I had already, I think that was like in the middle of the afternoon, we got some shade in the queue, but ultimately like I was pretty much ready to go home.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
After experiencing the Simpsons ride. And I know it wasn't the best of first impressions because I didn't ride it again until yesterday. Because we had to cover this fucking ride.
Yeah, so we went to go ride this ride.
Anyways, like what was because you grew up
Back to
closer
the Future,
to Universal Studios Hollywood. You went more as a kid and you got to experience Back to the Future?
I did. I loved Back to the Future. Just a little context here is I have three movies that are in a three-way tie for my favorite movie of all time. And mind you, when I say favorite, I don't mean the best movie of all time, like critically. I'm talking about which ones I enjoyed watching the most. I had 3 VHS tapes that I basically wore out to the point where they wouldn't even work anymore, and I would rotate them. It was Back to the Future, E.T., and then Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Those are the 3 movies that I watched. At this point, I've watched them over 100 times.
If Spielberg's name was on it, it had a fighting chance.
Exactly, because I wanted to be Steven Spielberg when I was growing up.
Hey, never too late.
No, it's too late. And it is far too late. Though I would love to work with him maybe as an actor. I could do that. I could die happy. But no, I love Back to the Future so goddamn much. And I loved E.T. Then they replaced E.T. and then they replaced Back to the Future. I forget which order it was, but both of them really hit me hard just because it was amazing to be a kid and love watching these movies and then go to the theme park and be able to be like, there's my guy, there's Marty, there's E.T., there's Doc. It was fun to hang out with the gang.
I believe it was E.T. first and then swiftly after.
That's how I recall.
That was like kind of their big movement during like the late 90s, early 2000s was like, okay, we need to like get people interested again. Let's just start wiping these beloved attractions out for the flavor of the week.
It's the problem that Universal Studios Hollywood has, and this ride is almost indicative of that virus in that they are landlocked. They do not have a lot of space to expand into because they actually are, to their credit and to their demise, a working movie studio. And because of that, expansion is not really in the cards. So they, instead of expanding when they add new attractions, they have to expand by subtraction. They have to take the place of something else. And that was my first taste of that. And I loved Back to the Future. I realized Back to the Future, and this is a bit hypocritical of me, was a screen attraction in itself. But that attraction was released in the 90s or late 80s. So, that's very indicative of that time. We're talking like the Star Wars era, or Star Tours era, rather. So it was fine. Whereas like Simpsons, it comes out in 2008. Let's do a little better. But no, Back to the Future was one of my favorite rides. I remember as a kid, I would we're not talking about Back to the Future. I love Back to the Future. I'm not going to sit here and explain why I love Back to the Future, the ride. It was a superior ride in every way. The facade was better. Everything was better. I was going into The Simpsons hot because of that. I was like,
okay, so you're already pissed off.
I was already pissed off, and I was like, all right, I love theme parks. I love rides. Maybe this will surprise me. That's genuinely how I went in. I was never a big Simpsons fan. I think they're funny. I think every episode that I have caught, like the Treehouse of Horror episodes in particular, I thought they were good. A lot of my favorite comedy, some of my comedy heroes have come from The Simpsons kind of camp, like your Conans and stuff like that. So I like The Simpsons, but I'm not like a super fan of The Simpsons by any means, and nor have I watched a majority of the episodes.
Do you know any super fans of The Simpsons?
No, not really.
Right now? Not
really.
I feel like that might have been the generation before us or something, because I don't know. I don't remember us growing up crazy over it. It was like more South Park.
They're still limping along. I mean, I'm sure the show is still good. I can't.
The longest running animated show of all time.
That's correct.
Or at least in the United States.
It still kind of feels like, growing up in LA when you would watch, Kobe out there playing past his prime and he was launching up threes and you were just like, man, this is sad. That's kind of how I feel about The Simpsons. Anyways, I walked in there trying to give it a fighting chance, and look, it just wasn't nearly as good. We'll get into this in the good and the bad. I was disappointed almost on every level. It did make me laugh in future rides, but in that first ride, I think I was just so hyped up over Back to the Future, even though I was trying to give it a chance, that nothing really landed for me. It just wasn't as classic. I thought they took something out for, like you said, the flavor of the week, which is a weird thing to say when you're talking about the longest animated running show of all time. But I don't know. There were certain things about Back to the Future and E.T. and even Terminator 2 when they had that show that really made it feel like it was playing to Universal's mission statement, which was, when they started that park, it was like, oh, come here and ride the movies. And the spirit of filmmaking felt alive in those rides. And particularly maybe not particularly, but to me, because, they had my guy Stevie Spielberg on them. And to me, he was the movies. And that just represented the classic era of blockbuster filmmaking, which is like when you're a kid, you're like, I want to I want to be on the dolly next to the DP, like when explosions are happening and stuff like that, or making classics. And those movies felt like classics. And so have it replaced by a cartoon, it just felt weird.
I find it wildly ironic in general too that like so many of Universal's like parks IPs are from different distributors.
Yeah, yeah.
For example, like Harry Potter's from Warner's, Transformers, Paramount.
Yeah, yeah.
Simpsons, 20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
Now Disney.
Yeah, yeah. Well, who knows where it's going to be in a bit here. Simpsons might be on its way out. Fingers crossed. But that's, I didn't like it. Let's just end it there. I don't want to keep whining up top about how it replaced classic attractions. That's not what this podcast is about. It's about evaluating the ride at its face value. So with that, let's just quickly jump into the history before I go off on another tangent.
And we will also jump into a DeLorean and take this back to January 9th of 1987.
Great.
Star Tours opens at Disneyland Park via the creative mashup of George Lucas, Michael Eisner, and Imagineer Tony Baxter, introducing the world to a game-changing motion simulator ride system.
We found this fantastic device that was in work in the Air Force and in the government to simulate excursions into space, and we thought it was a natural. Here we have the space of fantasy that George had created and combined it with real-world technology that was ready to go, and this will be the first time the general public has actually got to experience something like this, so we're real excited about it.
Similar to the masses that got to experience Star Tours during its opening years, Steven Spielberg, who had the benefit of checking out the attraction via his buddy George Lucas during the development stage, was extremely impressed. So impressed that he brings it up to Universal's creative mastermind and former college roommate Peter Alexander, who was working on the soon-to-debut King Kong animatronic in Hollywood.
Oh my God, the best. That King Kong animatronic. So goddamn good.
And it's also so damn gone.
It's so damn. It's definitely a charred corpse.
We're mourning quite a few losses in this this episode. This is the ride to do it.
This
right?
episode extracts a heavy toll. Thanos. Anyways, let's keep going.
Now, perhaps motivated by George Lucas saying something to the tune of, "You screwed up going with Universal, they could never do anything like Star Tours," Spielberg was now on a mission to prove otherwise. To pull this off, Universal would team up with Alexander's Totally Fun company and amusement ride manufacturer Intamin to create what was at the time the world's largest motion simulator attraction based on the 1985 Spielberg-produced, Robert Zemeckis-directed hit film, Back to the Future.
By the way, this might be a hot take, but Back to the Future better than Star Tours. It is.
Really?
I think it's a better ride. And that's not just because I'm a Spielberg homer, but anything you can do, I can do better.
This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Some rides might not give us everything we ask for, but it's nice to know that in some places we get just that. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place, all on your terms. Start a completely personalized website with the new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. Choose from professionally curated layout and styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up. Tailor to your brand or business and optimize for every device. And staying up to date on the latest in styles can be difficult, but Squarespace has you covered and they update these themes and templates often. So you can be sure that your website always has the latest look, effects, and tech. With Fluid Engine, the next generation website editor from Squarespace, it's never been easier for anyone to unlock unbreakable creativity. Choose your website starting point and customize every design detail with reimagined drag and drop technology for desktop or mobile. Stretch your imagination online with Fluid Engine included in any new Squarespace site. Easily launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated, optimized SEO tools so you show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. Starting a business? Sell exclusive content on your site or sell files your customers can download like PDFs, music, or ebooks. Or easily manage your clients and invoices, from vetting leads to receiving payment via invoices in one streamlined, customizable workflow. Or maybe you're a content creator. Upload video content, organize your video library, and showcase your content on beautiful video pages. Whatever your needs, Squarespace is there to work for you. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/FYA to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
Either way, Back to the Future better. It is. I think it's a better ride. As a kid, it thrilled me more. And I loved Star Wars as a kid, too. So I just thought it was more thrilling, scarier. It had a T-Rex.
Cool. Anyways, it is important to note that a motion simulator was not the first ride system that came to mind for Back to the Future, like with so many other attractions we have or will talk about.
Nice.
In the future, the original idea for this was for it to be a roller coaster.
Oh my God, that would have been fucking sick.
I feel like all these rides just start out with, like, wouldn't it be cool if it was a roller coaster?
Well, it honestly might have kind of somewhat turned into a roller coaster. If you watched our Epic Universe episode, Starfall Racers, it's not overtly a Back to the Future roller coaster, but there is a rumor that there is a flux capacitor at the back of the train. Pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. Now, can you guess why this didn't become a roller coaster? What was like the main reason?
Well, probably because they had no space at all. And it was probably a lot of money.
That would have been my first guess. Supposedly, it had to do with them not being confident enough in telling the story beats with a roller coaster moving at high speeds.
That's a fucking dumb reason not to make something.
This was before the age
Too
of the
hard creatively. I can't think of it.
They thought you'd be flying by the show scenes too fast.
Have some imagination
for it to really work. This hurdle, in addition to the inspiration that was conceptualized via Star Tours, would launch Universal into the motion simulator game, resulting in the team up with Intamin, in addition to enlisting longtime Hollywood VFX guru Douglas Trumbull to direct the ride film, which was filmed in 70mm and projected upon two separate 80-foot diameter screens. Back to the Future, the ride opened officially at Universal Studios Florida on May 2nd of 1991, almost a year after the opening of said park.
Welcome to Universal Studios Florida and the world premiere of Back to the Future, the ride.
Sidebar, what do you know about the first year of Universal Studios Florida?
I know it wasn't exactly a smashing success, right?
Yeah, it was an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
So this opening up almost a year after that opening was probably served as the park's saving grace.
Yeah.
3 of their like headliner attractions. This was like, let's say, there's Earthquake. Of course, they did have E.T. That wasn't one of the main culprits of this, though. But they had a Confrontation, and they also had Jaws. But Earthquake, Jaws, and Confrontation apparently were just operational nightmares.
I mean, those rides kicked ass, though.
Eventually, but during the opening, during
I could see
the
that.
opening months, people had such a hard time getting on them.
Yeah, makes sense.
And experiencing them in a park that didn't really have that many attractions to go around to begin with.
Yeah.
That Universal had to issue like courtesy vouchers to come back further down the road.
Oh.
So,
I mean, ironically, though, that's why we get the simulator rides, because they could eat a capacity and they were more reliable than these, tactile, real world type rides where you're moving through environments with animatronics. Breakdowns, technical difficulties, much more prominent than sitting in a movie theater.
And the benefit of the simulator is you have multiple screens.
That's correct.
So even if you're not running, if one of them goes down, okay, you're running at half capacity.
No, you don't have multiple Kongs.
But at least you're giving people a fighting chance to get on the ride. It's still moving people through.
Do you remember the King Kong animatronic? Apparently he had banana breath.
I have heard of this. Yes. I think we've actually touched on it a time or two. I myself have never experienced the banana breath.
The thing is, was he eating a giant banana?
I don't think that was King Kong's shtick.
Well, I mean, I'm saying if he has banana breath and it's King Kong, he's not eating he's tiny little banana. I guess when you're eating,
you grab an entire tree.
What was the candy that had the little bananas, Runts. He was eating runts. Maybe he was eating bananas like they were runts. I was imagining, though, he would find a giant banana tree, because there's a giant monkey, so maybe there's a giant banana tree. Anyways, it's not important. I guess that never occurred to me until right now.
Okay. Well, anyways, Universal God, kill me. Universal Studios Florida, a disaster.
Yeah.
So this came in to save the day during about just short of a year after its opening in 91.
Yeah.
So this When this opened? Yeah. This was May 2nd, 1991. So yeah, almost a year after Universal Studios Florida opened. And although construction on Universal Studios Hollywood's version of Back to the Future, the ride, began at the same time as Florida's, a very costly miscalculation compromised the project's foundation, setting Universal back millions of dollars and delaying construction to the tune of a June 12, 1993 opening, over 2 years after the opening of Florida's.
Yikes.
And on March 31st of 2001, a third iteration opened in Japan. And although this attraction would go on to be a guest favorite at all three parks for many years, it would find itself a victim of Universal's initiative to bring fresh IPs into the fold. This takes us to March 30th of 2007, where Universal closes the Orlando version of Back to the Future permanently.
Boo.
Hollywood's version would quickly follow suit, closing on September 3rd of
Double boo.
2007.
Boo. Boo this man. Boo. Boo. Bad guy.
Don't
Boo.
shoot the messenger. Universal would even go as far as to bring in Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown for a farewell ceremony, which
Nice.
may or may not have just poured salt on the wound.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't there.
I wish I could have been there.
This beloved attraction would be replaced with the likes of America's longest-running animated series, The Simpsons, and although Back to the Future in Japan would not receive the same exact reskin treatment, it would reach its demise on May 31st of 2016 to make way for Despicable Me, Minion Mayhem.
You have got to be shitting me. Wait, I thought that closed around the same time. I didn't realize it was limping along till 2016.
Oh, yeah.
I would have got on that ride.
It went to 2016. Hey, you know what? Tell you what, they still got Jaws.
Oh, I think that is going to close too.
I thought there were rumors of it closing, and then I don't know. It's been back and forth.
You mean to tell me that Back to the Future was ousted by Krusty the Clown and the Minions?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
That's the one too. That is the world we live in. These are the times. And you know what?
Banana.
I'll actually bring this up. This will a little extra salt on the wound coming up in this
Great.
history segment. But,
Awesome.
Back in the States and back to 2007, Back to the Future's main structure and ride system remained intact, but are rethemed to resemble Krustyland, a fictional amusement park set in the Simpsons universe, via a new paint coating that took place through 2007 and 2008 for both Hollywood and Florida's renditions of the new ride, with the ride vehicles receiving motion alterations in addition to brand new pre-show videos produced along the way. And on May 15th and May 19th of 2008, the Simpsons ride would officially open at Universal Studios Florida and Hollywood, respectively. And although the Simpsons ride, similar to the show that spawned it, has lost much of its relevance in pop culture over its 16 years of operation, it is still entertaining park guests to this very day, officially serving a longer operating life than its predecessor, Back to the Future.
I know that. And when you say entertaining, it's guests. According to who?
The guy that goes, ha ha.
No, look, I realize there are probably people tuning into this podcast. I mean, to be fair, if you're a fan of this podcast, you already knew we didn't like this ride. But if you didn't tune into this podcast, and this is in fact your first time listening to this podcast, I do promise you we are not normally this snarky. And I apologize if you really do enjoy this ride. We do have some good things to say about it later, but I'm struggling to not let my emotions get the better of me.
The wait times in Florida, it's got an all-time average wait time. Do you want to take a guess? All-time average wait time, Florida.
I'm going to guess 40 minutes.
Okay, close-ish.
35.
25. 25 minutes.
Okay.
While Hollywood's boasts an all-time average wait time of...
Ooh, that one's got to be 40. It's always...
Fucking nailed that one. Yeah.
It's got to be 40.
It's 40 minutes.
Every time I look at the app, it's around 40 minutes. You know what it is? It's right near the escalator down to the lower lot, and you just have that big, stupid Krusty the Clown head right there just
That's
looking
what I'm
at
saying.
you.
It's like the backbone of Universal Studios Hollywood.
I wouldn't call it
Like,
the backbone. I would
but
call
it's
it
like-
the bone that
it's
sticks
front-
out and you
like,
can't
it's-
avoid looking at it, and it's a funny looking bone, and everyone
All-
points it out, but then you're like, it's my bone.
all paths at Universal Studios Hollywood lead to this
They do.
Krustyland.
You're right. That
You can't go to the lower lot to get on Jurassic World, see Super Nintendo World,
No, that's
Mummy,
right.
Transformers. You can't do that unless you're staring down the barrel of Krusty.
The thing is, in Universal Studios Orlando, The Simpsons is kind of at the back of the park. You have to walk kind of out of your way to get to it because it's a giant loop. So you could avoid Simpsons pretty easily in Orlando, which makes sense, the 25 minutes.
Oh, I know it. I actually didn't know that they had a Simpsons ride there.
They have another
long time.
They have like a little side Simpsons ride. I think it's the Two Aliens. I forget what it's called. It's like a little spin around. It's like a flat ride. They have that there as well. I forget what the name of those two aliens are, but they have a ride.
Oof.
Yeah. Guess they're giving alien rides out to everybody now. Couldn't let E.T. have his own ride, but let's give one to the two fucking space guys from The Simpsons.
Kang and Kodos.
Kang and Todos.
Kang and Kodos Johnson.
They have a last name?
So it says.
What the fuck? Kang and Kodos Johnson. Yeah,
get me
but
out
let's
of here.
get that E.T. out of here, that classic alien that everyone loves. Let's get Kang in there. Anyways,
Oh, and
Lord, I'm trying really hard, and I feel like I'm coming off extremely negative, and I'm trying not to. I promise you I do have good things to say about this ride.
here's the deal. 25 minutes all-time average wait time in Hollywood. 40 minutes in 25 in Florida, 40 minutes in Hollywood shows that
People do get
there
on this
is
ride.
still a legitimate demand for this attraction.
Yes.
However, with Disney's acquisition of 20th Century Fox in 2019 and Universal's licensing agreement for The Simpsons set to end in 2028, it seems that the end of Springfield's presence inside these Universal parks is drawing near, leaving many theme park sickos out there to question what property could perhaps, pull a Simpson on The Simpsons.
I mean, the rumors I'm hearing, the word on the street, it's possibly going to be Pokemon, which I would be so stoked. If Pokemon took the place of The Simpsons, just the sweet, sweet justice of it. Also, I saw that there was rumors for it to be a Pokemon Snap ride, and I loved playing that game as a kid. I want to toss a fucking apple at a Pikachu's head just so he could turn around so I could snap a little photo.
Now, do you think they keep the same ride system?
No. What I was seeing, it was going to be more of like a dark ride kind of type, or maybe a trackless vehicle kind of ride. It would be my guess. Not my guess. I think I read that. So, but I think that's all rumors. Granted, these were rumors from Alicia Stella, so she's got a pretty good hit rate. We'll see. She did say herself, though, that this is a very big rumor, and she's like, it's more speculation. So we don't know.
Well, either way, something to look forward to. Maybe it's just simply the end of the Simpsons ride for those.
I don't want to wish death on it, I think. No, we could just cut that out. I want it to die. I do want it to die. And we are back. Thank you for sponsoring this show. Let's go ahead and jump into some fun facts. The ride is approximately 4 minutes and 30 seconds long with an unknown simulated speed. I'm surprised I couldn't find that because most of these simulator rides, they're like, you're actually going 8,000 miles per hour. And that's why Vin Diesel is able to hang off a helicopter and that whole
I don't know
shit.
how they calculate that,
I don't
by
know.
the way.
I'm just making it up. And then it has a ride capacity of 2,000 riders per hour and a cost of $30 million in Orlando and $40 million in Hollywood. I thought that was odd. That's reported. Some people were saying they cost the same at $40 million each.
So if those budgets are strictly for The Simpsons,
yeah,
and just the $30 and then $40 million just for making the renovations, I don't really understand how it's $10 million more in Hollywood.
Well,
I was thinking about like actually constructing the buildings and stuff like that, because for Back to the Future, the Hollywood version was like almost double the price of Orlando's, but for Simpsons, I don't fucking get that. Unless like maybe, I don't know, contractors are more expensive in California as opposed to Florida, or I don't know.
Well, maybe it will just simply remain a mystery. Okay, the ride utilizes an 80-foot, and I saw 85 feet in some places, IMAX domed screen with footage at 60 frames per second, projected by 4K projectors in tandem, along with 12 speakers on the vehicles and an additional 90 in the domed theater itself. When you are raised up at the beginning of the ride, you're raised 10 feet by a scissor lift, which is pretty cool. That was always a cool effect in Back to the Future, too, because it made it feel like you were flying like they were at the end of the film. There's actually a reference to Back to the Future in one of the Q videos, where Professor Frink visits the Institute of Future Technology to visit his pal Doc Brown, only to see that it's been replaced by, in his words, in Professor Frink's words in the video, he sees that the lab is no longer there, and he says, quote, his lab has been replaced with a clownish theme park, end quote. Because he gets there and he sees Krustyland, and he's like, what the fuck is this? So they almost knew that people were going to be upset that this ride was being replaced. Then Frink goes, fuck this, I'm going to go back in time to prevent this horrible tragedy. But in doing so, he accidentally runs over a banker with the DeLorean when he enters the past. Once the car enters the past, he runs over a banker. And then the banker was the person that would have kept the Institute open. The banker's actually in the middle of shaking Doc Brown's hand. Have you seen this video? It's pretty funny.
I have heard of it. I don't think I've seen the whole thing play out. It's
can't
really savage. It's just more. It's really just more salt on the wound.
They knew that it was gonna make people upset, and then they were like, "Let's put this in the queue." Right when
they're waiting an hour.
Right when they're like, "Let's give this ride a chance," and then you see that. The comic book guy, another reference to Back to the Future, is also seen wearing Marty's futuristic jacket from Back to the Future 2. Matt Groening's portrait could be seen in the queue. He's the creator of The Simpsons. And speaking of Matt Groening, there's actually a little fun fact about him, because in the Krusty Burger, and this is only at Universal Studios Hollywood, there's a VIP room in which you could go upstairs. I don't know if it's actually a VIP. I think it's just a hidden room. You could go up there. There are paintings and drawings from all the Simpsons animators there with all the Simpsons characters. And Matt Groening has this deal, this copyright law, where anytime there is a drawing of a Simpsons character, his name needs to be next to it, Matt Groening's, not the artist who drew it. And that's just to protect his creation. But in this room, in the Krusty Burger room, all of the art on the wall has the actual artists' names next to it. It's the only place in the world where the artists are properly credited, which I thought is pretty cool. I don't know if Groening signed off on that or if that's just something they did, but it's a neat little fun thing.
Yeah, if only that amount of heart actually was applied to like the queue of the ride.
It's fair. Hey, look, fair. I'm not going to argue with you there. All voice actors reprised their roles on The Simpsons ride, with the exception of Harry Shearer, who voiced Ned Flanders and Mr. Burns and other characters in the show. Ironically, being a guy who voiced Mr. Burns, he claims on the Howard Stern show, apparently, that he didn't do the ride because he wouldn't be paid for it. Fair. I think that's fair. The ride had an opening ceremony on May 27th, 2008, that apparently, and this is a figure that I was not able to verify, but this is the claim, apparently there were 1 million people there at the opening ceremony of this ride, and a rumored 888,000 of them were wearing Marge hats. They had these hats that looked like Marge
There's no fucking
Simpson's
way.
hair. And we could show a picture of that right now for those who are watching the video version of this. There's people with these Marge Simpson hats on.
Wait, where do you fit these million people?
That's what I was thinking. That park can't even fit that many. So
This sounds like a very, very, very fun fact.
That sounds like a wrong fact. But I thought that was funny. That's floating around there on the internet. I think it's wrong, but I thought it would be fun to mention it. One incident occurred on June 13th, 2008, when a vehicle malfunction sprayed guests with vegetable oil. I'm now realizing all of these fun facts are low-key disses to this ride, and I didn't intend for that to happen. These are what I found. But this happened June 13, 2008. A vehicle malfunctioned, sprayed all the guests with vegetable oil, and the guests were allowed to shower on property. That's kind of thrilling. And then they were given new clothes. Pretty fun.
What site did you get this from? Is this like backtothefutureforlife.com or?
This is twitter.com/Ryan S. Bergara. That's where I got all these facts from.
Because I could definitely see like a major Back to the Future Homer
just
like
writing all
like
these, yeah.
a very like tasteful looking site that like looks like insanely credible, and it's
I-
just like shitting on Simpsons.
Like a magician never revealing his tricks, I never reveal my sources. But there were many of them. I get all my fun facts from all over the internet. I try to get them from places like the LA Times and stuff like that, they write a surprising amount about theme parks, so kudos to the LA Times. The crusty head that you walk through to enter the queue is 32 feet tall. What a feather in their cap. Some land-specific fun facts. These are just fun facts about Springfield itself, which is, they tried. There are 23 Simpsons character statues across the Springfield land in Universal Studios Hollywood. The Luigi Pizza, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's like Luigi's Pizzeria or Luigi's Pizza. It says 1989 on the awning. That's a reference to the year The Simpsons began. The phone in Moe's Tavern has audio of Bart Simpson prank calling you if you pick it up. Pretty fun. And every now and then, I've seen this, the nuclear power plant will melt down in Springfield. That's pretty fun, too. You've seen that, right? Where the alarms go off and smoke comes out of the building.
Oh, no, yeah, I've heard that shit. I didn't realize what was going. I was just trying to get to, like, the good rides. But
it's fair. And then Duff beer. That's specific only to Universal Parks and Resorts, and it was taste tested by the Simpsons writers in its creation. That's like if we made a Ghost Files beer and Shane and I tested, or a For Your Amusement brew, and then you and I taste tested it. That would just be a shot of Jack. That would be whatever gets it done fast enough so that we could get on some more rides with a buzz. Anyways, that does it for the fun facts. Let's move on to the good and the bad. But before we do that, let's once again take some time to thank our sponsors. And we're back. It's time to move on to the good and the bad. What are the good and the bad things about this ride? First, good. Even this good is snarky. I wrote, actually not the worst pre-show entertainment. They really focus your attention.
they produced a lot of stuff. I don't know.
I have to say, and I genuinely mean this, I do think it's among some of the best looped Q videos out there. It's pretty fun. And that's because it's The Simpsons.
It is. It's straight up like you're watching it like an episode of The Simpsons.
They got world-class comedy writers to make this Q video, and there's some really funny, like, it kind of, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but back in the day, there used to be something on YouTube called YouTube Haiku. You ever seen this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where basically it would be like a 30-second comedy clip of some sort of sketch or like a TikTok or not TikTok, or like a Vine or something like that. And then there would be like and it would cut to another clip. They basically do that in the queue.
A major highlight reel.
A highlight reel, essentially. And it's pretty fun. I enjoyed sitting there and watching it because Byron and I, like you said, went on this very recently to brush up on all this. And we sat there and watched the Q video, and it was fun.
But it's good because it's good world building, and I feel like it's all pretty much relevant to the experience you're about to have.
Yeah, and it has, like, if you're a fan of The Simpsons, a lot of your favorite characters show up, with the exception of Ned Flanders and Mr. Burns, as I said before. Next good I wrote here, hey, the show is funny. It is. I think you described it perfectly. This ride feels like an episode of The Simpsons. And if you love The Simpsons, you're going to love this ride. I do like The Simpsons, but I just didn't think the ride was that great. But I did find myself laughing throughout this ride when we just got on it. And, even in the past, I still think it's a funny ride. I just don't think it's a very good ride. The quad of folks that you see in the queue, I think that's a really fun setup. When you're sitting in the little waiting area where you're assigned to your little rooms that go into the car you get into.
Looks like a little like a midway.
Yeah, it looks like a midway.
Play some game.
And there's 4 booths, and each booth has like a different set of characters in it. Like there's Moe, there's Apu, there's Hans Molman, Patty and Selma, and they're all like alternating and trying to get your attention. I thought that was a really fun way to like I said, I think this queue is actually pretty good. The outside portion of it is just screens and it's kind of tacky. But once you get inside the building, I think it's fun.
Yeah, it's nice paint.
Yeah, it's nice paint. Back to the Future also had a little pre-show section too. Except I think it did a better job at telling the story.
Yeah.
Also in the queue, I noticed these are just itchy and scratchy hands, but I never noticed they look so much like Mickey hands, and I think that was purposeful. It never occurred to me.
What part?
There's a little glove that points to the area you're supposed. It's like a pointer finger that says "Go this way," and it looks like a Mickey hand, and I think that's just them thumbing their nose at Disney, which I do always find very fun. I just wrote Nerdenheimer. There's a moment in I can't remember who calls Professor Frink Nerdenheimer, but that made me laugh.
Nerdenheimer, don't you have a test tube to polish? Yes, I do, actually, but you denied my request for test tube polish.
Especially just because this is rated in 2008?
Yeah.
Far before Oppenheimer is in the zeitgeist.
That turns out that guy was
media standpoint.
A very pivotal person in history.
Yeah, he was a pivotal person in history, but no one's
even before Christopher Nolan. That's crazy.
Nobody's talking about him out on the streets or making Nerdenheimer jokes. Safety video, also really fun. They do a good job at kind of flipping theme park culture on its head in this ride.
Yeah.
I think for the safety video, they say something along the lines like, all right, now we have like a legally required safety video.
Well, that was because I guess the setup for it, right, is that Sideshow Bob is coming to like get revenge.
Yes.
There's a psychopathic killer on the loose. His name is Sideshow Bob, and he used to work for me. For some reason, he hates me. Then Bob tried to frame me for robbery, and he was foiled by the Simpsons. And now he's vowed to kill them all, even the baby.
And basically, you're looped in with the Simpsons family, like through like some raffle or some sort, where you get to be the first ones to experience this brand new Krustyland ride.
Yeah.
Which lucky family will be the first to go on my thrilling new ride? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Make it quick, I gotta go to the little clown's room, so the family that will see my show is the one who hollers, go! Fine, you're in. Come with me. Oh, and you can pick one other group to come with you.
How about these guys?
Sure, whatever. They look clean.
But Sideshow Bob's on the loose. He obviously hijacks the scene. And he, you know, puts the Simpsons at gunpoint and says, like, get on this ride.
Give her that ride.
Forget it, Bob. We'll never. Dad.
I waited in line an hour for this thing and I'm riding it. Now hop in.
I think the safety video comes shortly after that, but not before. I think is it Lisa or like one of the Simpsons is like, no, we're not getting in there, and then like it quickly zooms out and it shows Homer in there. Yeah, and he's basically saying something like, I've already waited like an hour
Here's
for this.
Here's the quote he said. He says, quote, I waited an hour for this, I'm gonna ride it. And which is, I totally understand that. And it's how I felt after I first got on this ride. I was like,
same.
Look, I waited an hour for this shit and I'm gonna get on it. That's so many people in a theme park ride.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing there.
Exactly.
So I did appreciate that. And then Sideshow Bob says something to the tune of like, I'm now going to like subject you to this safety video.
Yeah,
right?
this legally required safety video.
Now the last thing you'll ever see. A legally required safety.
And more insider theme park humor here. There's a point where they mention like, all right, now let's get into this ride that's exclusively run by teens. Like which is like the well-known secret of the theme park world.
And they show that like ride operator who just does not give a shit.
He's like basically studying for his algebra test, but the book is upside down. Very funny. And it's anybody who's been to any kind of local theme park, even Disneyland, it is an army of teens that are running these parks. And that's sometimes scary to think about when you're getting on a roller coaster that goes upside down or something like that.
No, the setup is done really well through these pre-shows. I will give the ride that.
Yeah. Another funny Homer quote right before you get on the ride when you're shuffling into your seats, because they don't assign which seat you sit in for this ride. They just say, all right, you guys figure out where you're sitting. There's 8 of you. There's 8 seats. You do the math, which is kind of anarchy because like, let's say you have a group of 4 family members, but then there's 2 groups of 2. The 2 groups of 2 could sit front and back, and now the family members are split up, and now you're kind of like in a weird pickle. And while that's happening, that shuffle, which I have seen happen on this ride, by the way, a family being split up, and then people are discussing, hey, can we switch? Can we do this? There's no one there to look over that. Meanwhile, the quote that happens in the background is Homer Simpson saying, quote, all seats are the same with the exception of the better ones.
That's pretty good, but also such a douche move.
And then he says, sit down or else I'm going to keep making a funny noise until you do. And he goes, and meanwhile, this family is arguing over like, I want to sit next to my daughter. And then, I've seen it happen before. It's kind of crazy to me.
Now, back to that safety video, that's Itchy and Scratchy as well.
It is
right?
Itchy and Scratchy.
And it's like basically, I forget which one, Itchy or Scratchy, is always like getting like killed in like the most brutal ways.
It's like a play on Tom and Jerry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So throughout that safety video, like the cat's like getting just like really fucked up.
Yeah, it's
like
getting cut in half
ways.
and like set on fire and things like that. It's fun. Then you get on the ride. We got some fun lines in this ride. Like I said, it's a funny ride. There's a point where like, I think Lisa or Marge says like, oh, we're going to die or something. And then Homer says, sweetie, they won't kill you in an amusement park as long as you have a dime left in your pocket.
A roller coaster.
I'm scared, Dad.
Sweetie, they won't kill you in an amusement park as long as you have a dime left in your pocket.
I wish the ride was good along with the lines, because the comedy in this ride, the writing itself is very funny. It's just the execution of it leaves a lot to be desired. And then there's fun things in the ride in terms of just theme park references to the outside world. Like there's a Waterworld reference. Like there's like clearly a stunt show that looks like Waterworld. There's a Pirates of the Caribbean dig from Disneyland. There's a Shamu Stadium dig.
Oh yeah.
It's fun. Also, one thing I forgot to say, I really enjoyed the motion at the beginning of the ride because you're like, okay, we know this is a screen simulator. And then you always forget the car moves forward.
It does move like a couple feet forward.
Goes up, which is always kind of thrilling. I remember the first time I got on this ride, and this could actually be a nice way to dovetail into the bad.
Because there's probably like 12 ride vehicles at the same time going, right? Because I think it's like 3 floors or like 3.
I don't know, but yes, that sounds about.
It's either like 2 or 3. Maybe it's 2. It's either 2 or 3.
Footage.
I know. I snuck some footage because I'm like, I had to see this thing like in motion. So we'll throw it up on the video version.
Yeah, Byron took some footage of like he panned his camera over to the right so you could see all the other ride vehicles looking at the screen. It's really fun.
Which, like, unless you're really looking for it, they do a really good job of making it feel like you are the only ride vehicle experiencing this.
That's because of the size of the screen. It doesn't matter where you are. Top floor, bottom floor, right, left. Yeah. The screen is so large and you're so close to it
and it's OmniMax, right? It's which essentially it's IMAX, but with I think they didn't really shoot it because it's all animated, but like when they did Back to the Future, for example, like OmniMax in the sense that like I think the main difference between IMAX and OmniMax is it's a dome screen and then they use more of a fisheye lens for what they shoot.
I don't know about the fisheye, but it is for sure a domed lens, and it it's effective. But like I was saying, the motion at the beginning of the ride. It's fun because it's fun and it's not fun in that it's like, oh wait, I thought this was a motion simulator and now we're moving. Maybe I was wrong about this ride. Maybe it's like actually there is like maybe it's like a suspended kind of ride.
Maybe you're gonna move through physical space.
Yeah, and then you find out no, just a motion simulator, and which is a nice dovetail into the bad. And that is all the goods I have. Byron, do you have any more goods?
I will say I especially upon this last ride. Only the second time I've ever been on this ride. I appreciate the motion of the ride vehicle is actually, I think, pretty smooth.
You mean
I didn't get dizzy. I thought it like matched what I saw on screen, like at least better than what I remember. And from what I hear, they actually, I never went on Back to the Future, but apparently that was like Back to the Future was way jerkier.
Yeah, it's funny that you would say that because it's actually one of my bads is that this ride is notorious for getting people sick. And there's a variety of reasons. I read one, I was going through Reddit just to see what people think of this ride. And one person was like, hot take, I think the Simpsons ride is actually worse than Fast and the Furious Supercharged, which they're both bad. But that's a funny thread title.
Fast and the Furious Supercharged, I have to wear those 3D glasses. The 3D glasses is usually what gets me going.
But in the thread, there was somebody saying, I think the Simpsons is worse because I have a skull and a brain and it hurts every time I get on it. And,
look, there is truth to that. Like, I'm not gonna.
People complain about getting sick on this ride, even more so than Forbidden Journey over in Harry Potter Land. And I think the reason behind that is because the screen is so large, and you're so close to it, and then the frame rate is 60 frames per second. It's that frame rate when you walk into like a Best Buy and you see the TV and you're like, that looks fucking weird. Mm-hmm. Now imagine just sitting inches away from that screen. And that's basically the experience of this ride. The frame rate's all fucking wonky, and then you're that close, and you're moving. It's a witch's brew to get you sick, essentially. I haven't personally gotten sick on this ride, but I've been on the ride plenty of times with folks who have gotten sick on this ride. And not just sick in the moment, like ruined their day sick. And it's notorious for that. Now, to be fair, people apparently also had the same complaints about Back to the Future. I don't recall that. So this is all anecdotal at this point. But this ride is supposed to get people quite sick.
And then just another good I would add. I think Plant and Payoff, really well done in this ride.
Oh, yeah. I did write, I forgot this good, Maggie Payoff.
Yep.
There's at the very beginning of the ride, there's like this thing where it's like, oh, make sure the kids don't go into the nuclear reactor area because it'll maybe mutate them and they'll have like, I think like Professor Frink says, like, you might grow a nose where your eye is, which is extremely painful.
Now, if a human being were to enter that room, who knows what events might occur, like they could grow 50 feet tall, or 3 extra arms, or an eye where their nose should be, which is painful.
That'd be extremely painful, or whatever, however he sounds like.
It's very good. And then the Simpsons get on the ride, and they're like, oh, wait, Maggie's too small to get on this ride. They leave them with Homer's dad.
Well, that's the thing is I think his dad, or the grandpa is having like problems and is like in denial about like not being in it.
I'm sorry, sir. People with heart conditions may not ride.
Why, I'm in the best shape I've ever... Oh, heart attack!
been in my life. I feel like a 20-stroke-year-old. Master Man, you're a dumb. I'll wait outside.
All right, fine. I can't. I shouldn't be going on this ride.
And then he falls asleep. Maggie crawls away, goes into the nuclear reactor area, and then gets incredibly large. Just grows like 90 times her size.
Some Pym particle shit going on.
Yeah, she goes full Ant-Man and gets real fucking big. And then you forget about her. And then at the end of the ride, she comes to save the day. A fun payoff. I like the payoff. You know what? I think this is the first time we've done this in this podcast. I don't think we've had enough goods. So I'm going to just say impromptu, off the top of your head, each of us go just one each. Say one thing, other genuinely good thing about this ride. With no snark, nothing. Just.
Oh, fuck. I have to think now.
That's
Hold
the
on.
point.
Oh, God. Okay. I thought I just emptied the tank.
I thought I did too.
It moves a lot of people.
It moves a lot. Hey, look, this ride rides.
I keep going back to the pre-shows.
The pre-shows is the best part.
But as in you are still waiting in line, but it doesn't feel as much as you're waiting in line because you're basically experiencing a Simpsons episode. But I feel like I've already said that like 10 times.
Here's another good. I think if you are a fan of The Simpsons, like a super fan, this ride is everything you wanted it to be. And I'm saying that as somebody who is not a super fan, but I could see that if I was a super fan, because apparently I think there's like over 200 Simpsons characters in this ride / pre-show. If you're a fan of that world, you are every second you're going, oh, that guy, that lady, oh my God. Like this is like everything you could have possibly ever wanted in this ride. So I think in that respect, it's a good love letter to the fans. It's like The Force Awakens for Star Wars fans.
And I will add that they did, I think they were very faithful to the fans while also finding a way to keep it
passable for the general public.
And passable for children. Because I think a lot of Simpsons humor is a little more adult, maybe.
Yeah.
So I think they tone it down just enough to get it so families can enjoy the ride too without taking away what makes the Simpsons.
That's true. My
the
nephew
Simpsons.
enjoyed this ride. He thought it was fun.
So there you go. We did it.
There.
We got the goods in.
Nice. We did it. See?
We got the goods.
You could be positive when you try. Let's move on to the bad, though. The first bad, I already talked about the motion sickness. Oh, cartoon simulator. Look, this is one of the reasons why I think Back to the Future was more effective. I just think in general, motion simulator rides are more effective when they're based in the real world environment. When it's a cartoon, you're just reminded constantly that you're just sitting in a movie theater. That's my problem with like the Despicable Me motion simulator when it replaced Terminator. I like when it's a real world environment because it helps me suspend that disbelief and it makes it much more immersive.
True. And then when you like look back at like Back to the Future when they filmed that, it was I think like shot 70 millimeter, but like
on
they
film.
used on film, and then they did like models, like these little.
Yeah, everything looked. You could buy it. I remember when I was on Back to the Future and I was a kid. Like I got on that ride for the first time when I must have been like 4 years old, and I didn't understand the concept of a motion simulator because it was my first motion simulator ever. So when that car rises up in the beginning, I remember taking like how the lap bar is kind of like it looks almost like a rollout little log that you use to roll out your muscles. I don't know what you call that thing, like you roll it around your IT band. So a rollout log or whatever. I would take both my little arms and hug them around the roller because I thought we were actually flying in space. And if I let go, I would fly out into the abyss. And I don't see a kid doing that on this cartoon ride.
I didn't realize you went on Back to the Future before Star Tours.
I did. Yeah.
Wow. I'm looking forward to your first impressions now of Star Tours, perhaps in a future episode.
Yeah, no, and not only is it a cartoon simulator, but the graphics are now pretty dated.
Oh, definitely. What you don't get in the actual ride that you get in the pre-shows is the signature animation style. Yeah. As soon as the ride starts, you're kind of like in 3D.
That's true.
Land.
Yeah, I kind of wish if they were going to be like, let's make this a cartoon simulator, then maybe let's just keep it to The Simpsons. Like, let's just actually make it look like The Simpsons animation. That I actually would have enjoyed that more. But they made it into this goofy kind of like 3D. I don't know. I
don't know how the 2D would have translated in the ride experience, but still, it's just the contrast. Just after you've watched so much of the signature animation which is part of why people love The Simpsons. I mean, like,
Yeah, lean into the animation style.
that's part of like what it made it unique, right? Like, there's
That's
a
a really
period
good
of
point.
time with The Simpsons, the show, that like they'd take like 9 months an episode or something,
Yeah.
just because the way it was animated, and then you lose that novelty as soon as you get in the ride vehicle. Speaking of ride vehicles, there's another bad for me is that, I mean, a DeLorean compared to this tacky ass Krusty the Clown.
They did keep the
roller
doors,
coaster
though,
shark.
the same as the DeLorean, just as like a nice little kind of like.
Well,
fuck you.
yeah, just because they didn't want to redo the ride vehicle, they just painted it like.
You're probably right. They just wanted to throw some paint on that.
Like
bad
nothing
boy.
about the machinery of this ride is any different. They're not
No,
gonna.
no, that's true. You know, also another bad I have is I just wrote same samey.
It's all same samey.
It's the after a while, each scene feels the exact same as the other one. It's 4.5 minutes. It feels longer.
I feel like we had this discussion on Transformers.
Yes.
Where it's like there's so much going on, yet it hits a certain point where you don't feel like you're getting anything new.
You just
and
log out.
Kind of log. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just more shit getting thrown at you. Like,
And it's not like pleasurable to look at. Like the sites. I will say, at least for Transformers, they did a good job of beautifully recreating the city. Whereas in this ride, you're just looking at like cartoon mishmash everywhere. And after a while, you're just like, all right.
yeah. And it's not, I think not till the really end that you kind of take a little like victory lap around Springfield.
Yeah, that it takes so long before you get to the iconic part. It's like the problem with Galaxy's Edge is that, like, I know they wanted to make Galaxy's Edge be like this frontier land that's between all of the popular places that you actually would recognize from the films. But unless you really commit hard to that, it's not going to be entertaining for anybody, not for the diehards, nor for like the general public. And I feel like this ride is similar to that.
And I can tell that I was frustrated about how over the top everything is without any substance, because there's a part after you go through Springfield where you end up in the house, like
Yes,
they're on the
yeah.
couch. And you're like, oh wow, that's a great ending. And then it's
Yeah.
like, just kidding. And then it like free falls you into like outer space or some
Yeah.
bullshit.
Home sweet.
I'm like, no, dude, get me off this ride. Like that was like,
I want to be on the couch.
yeah, like we're done here. Like that felt like The Simpsons. I don't like,
Yeah, it's. I agree. I totally agree. It doesn't give you a lot to latch onto, honestly, unless like you're really searching for it, like we were. I feel like even people who get off this ride, they're like, "Oh, that was fun." And if I talked to them after and was like, "Oh, what part did you like?" I bet you they'd be like, "I don't know, it was fun." You know,
it was like a wrecking ball, and like
Yeah.
Homer was running down the track, and
I recognize that that's generally what you want as a theme park executive. You want people just to have a good time. You're not doing it for the people that are like you and I, Byron, or the folks who are listening to this podcast. You're not going to sit there and analyze it and hope that there's some greater story or meaning. Not all of it has to be world class.
It makes me, yeah, sure, and like that's why like it makes me feel like there's once like a local like arcade that I used to go to, and like for a brief period of time they like put a simulator attraction in there. Like that's what like a lot of like local places were probably like doing after the success of Star Tours, like little knockoff, like just cheap simulators that they're throwing into arcades like across the country, like during the late 90s, early 2000s. And you're essentially, a lot of the Simpsons ride reminds me of going into one of those.
Which, perfectly goes into my next bad. Tacky decor and land. Lack of immersion. Plays like a carnival. This is like Coney Island mixed with The Simpsons.
Which is what it was kind of trying to be, but there's no matter how like well they do with the paint jobs, like the theme of this land is essentially, or at least this attraction is a tacky amusement park inside a theme park. It just doesn't.
It's the same reason that California Adventure was flawed in the beginning. When they made Paradise Pier, they wanted to make an homage to like the Coney Islands of the world.
And you don't go to Disney, you don't go to Universal for that.
No,
like,
you go for an elevated theme park. You go for immersion. You don't want to be like, oh, I see people shooting basketball hoops outside of Krusty the Clown's head. Like people are like trying to win stuffed animals. Like I don't want to see that when I'm like walking around. Like imagine if there were carnival games in the Harry Potter land. It just doesn't make any sense.
At that point, I'm like, put me in Six Flags, because at least their coasters travel through physical space.
That's correct. They know what they are. They are a theme park like that. So don't just lean into what you are instead of this like weird fence straddling, which comes off like you were just trying to save some cash or something.
Yeah. They tried to like sugarcoat it with just like making jokes about it the whole time.
Yeah. Well, there's also like very sparing references to Krustyland in the series itself. And we're talking like decades of television. There's a couple references to Krustyland. I can't even imagine like Simpsons diehards were like, I really wish they would make Krustyland into a theme park. And I guess like, as I say that, to be fair, I could see like if you're in like a room where you're thinking like, okay, we're going to make a Simpsons theme park land. I could see one of the ideas being like, well, we didn't mention Krustyland, which is a theme park. It would be fun to make the world's most dangerous theme park where you're going to die. But in practice, is that really what's going to be the most satisfying? Wouldn't it be better if you actually were kind of going more into through the Springfield environment? Because even like Springfield itself, there are some parts of it that like you could see, like there's McMoe's Tavern, there's, you know, the Quickie Mart, but it's really overshadowed by the carnival area and the Krusty the Clown head. It just kind of like...
That's what came first.
It's what came first. And then they kind of... It feels that way too. They tacked on Springfield after. It's almost like they realized like, oh shit, we need a little more...
This is kind of weird. It's like such an eyesore that we have to build a little world around. Like,
I think we fucked up because people like The Simpsons, but they wanted, you know, The Simpsons, not Krusty the Clown. So maybe we should put a Springfield here. And I remember when they built Springfield, I was pretty stoked for it because I was like, finally something there other than that big Krusty head and you know, people shooting water guns at like a little thing to win a teddy bear. So it's I just feel like it was a miscalculation of and a misuse of assets in terms of like the IP that they had. And, you know, and that's my next bad is that like, I don't think it's the most enjoyable if you aren't a Simpson fan, which is like, you know, we mentioned that it might be amazing if you're a Simpsons fan, but now that I think about it, I probably wouldn't want it to be more in the world of the Simpsons that I know. Like I would much rather go through like if they did a ride that was based around the Treehouse of Horror or something like that, something that was eventized already, then perhaps I'd be like, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Or at least a show with like a little more like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like just world building that translates better to a theme park. Like, I don't know, Bikini Bottom. Like I know they've done that at those
Bikini
malls,
Bottom
but
Land
like
would be
a
fucking
proper
amazing.
like Bikini Bottom, like who doesn't want to eat at the Krusty Krab? Like who doesn't want to go on like a ride that like takes you through Mrs. Puff's boating school and it just like SpongeBob like going fucking wild.
I think you also got to remember where this was in the theme park culture. This was not the time when these expensive immersive lands were the norm. I believe this predates Cars Land. So
barely.
Oh,
wait.
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah, it did. They announced Cars Land 2007, but it did not. Yeah.
And no one knew how hard they were going to go in Cars Land. And then you get Cars Land, you get Harry Potter Land, you get, you know,
that's a very good point.
Galaxy's Edge. And now you get, you know, what's it called?
Pandora.
Correct. Pandora. That's right. That's what I was searching for. So, you know, it's kind of like the half measure that was taken before they went full out with a Cars Land and then Harry Potter. And it feels that way. And it's even worse in Universal Studios Hollywood because unlike Universal Studios Florida, it's next door to Harry Potter World. So like you really could see the quality drop fast. Like when you exit those gates. It's just they beefed it, honestly. I mean, I'm trying to find the positives in it, but I never enjoy walking through this part of the park. And I always hope like maybe one day they'll turn it into something different. Like if they turn that entire building into like a, I forget what they call them.
Well, it's like two buildings, really, right?
Well, they turn it into like a training gym, like a Pokemon, or like the Poke Center where you would meet like, you know.
Oh, that'd be fun.
That'd be sick. Let's move on to the world-class test. But before we do that, let's once again thank our sponsors. And we're back. It's time to get into the world-class tests. This is a rubric of 10 tests painstakingly devised by Byron and myself to determine if an attraction is world-class. To receive the highly coveted world-class pass, the attraction must pass 7 out of 10 tests. A score of 6 out of 10 leaves the attraction up for debate for world-class pass standing, and anything lower than 6 out of 10 is an automatic fail. Test number 1. I'm so curious how this ride is going to fare.
I mean, I have an idea.
All right. Test number 1, the average tourist test. Would the average tourist have a hard time getting on this ride? Is there a long wait? Is there a complicated queue system? They could get on this.
Yeah, they can.
If they wanted
to. It's really hard to miss this, especially at the Hollywood version.
Yeah.
Orlando's, there's a lot of stuff going on at the front of the park and like that, I don't know, that back right area is kind of where it's situated, right? Like before you get to Men in Black and E.T. and that kind of thing.
Yes. It's right by E.T. I'm just thinking, is this the worst ride in the park? I think this is, no, Despicable Minion Mayhem is probably worse than this ride.
That's essentially like a very similar ride system that they like even did less to.
Yeah.
Like they didn't even do the scissor lift up into like to give you like, no, you're just like, you look around and you're surrounded by
surrounded by other people.
And that is a truly atrocious ride.
I just can't think of like the idea of waiting for this ride before you waited for any of the. Oh, then again, it's pretty easy to get through Universal Studios Hollywood in particular, their lineup, and get on this ride.
Yeah.
Because there's not many rides there at the moment, which is why they desperately need, Hollywood Drift coming in 2026. But yeah, I think it's a pretty easy ride to get on. Should you? That's a different question.
This is very much a ride for the average tourist. In the sense, like it's just, I'm sorry, it's so low IQ. It's just like, here's a big building, here's some bright colors. Yeah. Come on, you big dummy. Welcome to California.
Hey, walk into this
Simpsons
clown's mouth. Literally make you walk through a clown mouth.
Yeah. Like you can't tell me they're not trying to get people to think, oh, this is a roller coaster, like while having like a roller coaster looking vehicle with Homer in it.
Yeah.
At the front entrance. They're just like, nah, they'll never know until they get on, then it's too late.
And then you walk out and you feel like a clown. You are the clown. That's the biggest joke of all. That's a pass.
It is a pass.
Let's move on to test number 2. This is why this test is, I'm proud of it because it's objective and I could clearly say that Byron and I are not. Test number 2, the Leslie Stahl test. Oh, here we go. Would you be willing to wait 60 minutes for this attraction if you've already been on it at least once? Or if everything in the park was 60, would you wait for this? Absolutely not. It was 25 minutes when we waited for it a couple days ago. And I have to say, I was upset about it. I was upset about it walking into it. And then when we waited, I actually was like, you know what? This queue is pretty nice. And then I got on the ride and I was like, no.
And we didn't even wait. We barely waited. In the queue. Like imagine being out there for an hour in those switchbacks.
And it's like, it's bacon in the summer.
Yeah.
Because in the summer, that valley is like, you're like the fucking.
Oh, it is awful. I was in it once. It was atrocious. I wanted to go home.
You're like Arnold Schwarzenegger going into the lava pit at the end of T2. Except you're not giving a thumbs up. You're giving a thumbs down. It's a fail. It's a fail.
I had such a miserable time waiting an hour the first time. It took me like 15 years
to recover.
And it took us having to do this episode for me to have to do it again.
That experience was so bad for you that you actually stopped going to Universal Studios Hollywood for a while until I brought you back.
That is actually very true. Yeah.
So it's a fail. And that's 1 for 2. We're going into test number 3. Smartphone test. Does the queue of this ride have enough to keep you off of your phone? Now, this is interesting because I do think it does.
I think it does too.
I think it's a well done queue.
Which is pretty annoying.
In terms of the entertainment it offers. I don't think the decor is particularly spectacular, especially in the outdoor switchback portion, but the content is pretty damn good.
Yeah. If you're waiting an hour or more for it, then that means like half an hour of your wait is going to be absolutely disgusting and you will be on your phone. But that's not usually the case, just going off our metrics or, the average wait time. And yeah, for most of this queue, for the average what you wait, there's a lot of good material.
I found it very hard to not be entertained by it, like the outside portion, the queue. Is this test going to reveal that maybe this is an okay attraction and that our opinion of it is just bad? That would be interesting. Wouldn't that be something? Because that's 2 for 3 according to me.
Look,
I think is that a pass?
Look, I don't want to be like punny, but like there are some homers for this ride.
There are
that do support this ride. So
is it a pass for you?
It is a pass.
It's a pass for me too.
Yeah, it is an entertaining queue.
2 for 3.
What can I say?
Moving on to test number 4, the Tony Stark test. How innovative is this attraction? Does it push theme park tech forward? No.
I don't think so either.
I think it pushes it backwards.
I think you can make an
argument.
You should
get -1 point.
I think you can make an argument for Back to the Futures because that was rather innovative.
But that was also aping Star Tours, so.
It was, but like Star Tours didn't use like an 80-foot, Omnimax screen.
And it didn't have a scissor lift up.
Yeah, I didn't have all those things like sharing the same screen.
Yeah,
at the same time. Like so that was ahead of its time. However, I think there's better versions of it that have come out since in terms of like motion simulator technology.
Well, this is a reskin of an old ride, so it's clearly a no here. So.
Yeah. Since this is not Back to the Future, and then like the closest things they've done to taking the tech that's in this ride or from Back to the Future is like in stuff like Despicable Me, Minion Mayhem, where it's actually it has taken us backwards.
No, it's
in
not
a
good.
way. So I give it a fail.
I'm going to fail that. That's 2 for 4. Moving on to test number 5, the Hollywood test. Can this attraction be adapted for the silver screen? Does it have a comprehensible story? Look, it does. It has a comprehensible story. It's from one of the most popular TV series of all time. You could conceivably see this being, at the very least, an episode of The Simpsons. I think this is a pass, unfortunately.
It's a strong pass.
I think it's a strong pass. Yeah.
It's like really like it's
It's
good
pretty
storytelling.
solid.
They plant the seeds throughout each like pre-show. There are payoffs.
This is painful for me.
I don't know why this. Okay,
3 for 5.
I know. We said the bads already. I don't know why this just came up in my head, but this is a very important note, just because we are praising the storytelling in these pre-shows so much. But that final pre-show before the doors open, you go into the car.
Yeah.
It's hard to fucking even hear what's going on in your pre-show because you're hearing the ride.
That's
on
true.
the other side of the wall.
You
Sorry,
are.
just had to get that one out of the way.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
You hear
too.
everyone like screaming, and you hear like all the noise from the ride on the other side of the wall.
That was actually
bleeding in
Back to the Future as well. And I remember that was part of the reason why I was scared to get on that ride, because I could hear people screaming and I was like, what's going on the other side of that door?
It shouldn't be there.
It shouldn't be there. No, but look, it tells a story. You're aware of the story because of all the cue. And yeah, it's got a beginning, middle, and end.
It's a pass.
It's a pass. 3 for 5. I feel sick. Let's go to test number 6. What's this one called? The Simpson test. How likely is this ride to be replaced with something new, like Simpsons replacing our beloved Back to the Future?
It will.
It will be replaced. In fact, I'm positive of it. The contract's coming up soon. Ending, that is, as Byron mentioned in the history. So, yeah, this is...
And even if the contract wasn't ending soon, even if Disney didn't own...
They were going to old
Simpsons
yeller this ride
point,
in a bit.
Yeah, it's, the
Let's get it out.
relevance of, the Simpsons nowadays is just not as strong.
Out of curiosity, Matt, could you look at what was the Simpsons viewership this year versus, let's say...
Yeah, this stat shows 30 years ago, 27.8 million viewers per season.
How many?
27.8 million viewers per season. That's in like 1989.
Okay.
And now we're looking at an average of like 1.8 to 2.
Yikes.
Yeah. But I mean,
per season?
Yeah.
Oof.
Viewers. I mean, viewers each season.
But, you buff it up with some like streaming and stuff like that, right?
We'll buff out
It's
those
not
scratches
doing
later.
well.
But no, I don't know anyone that watches The Simpsons anymore.
Okay, that's a fail. 3 for 6. Test number 7, the signature moment test. Can the ride hold its own without its signature moment? Is it a one-trick pony? This is the definition of a one-trick pony.
What is the signature moment?
That's a good question, Byron. I guess you could make it be the drop from the couch.
The drop from the couch.
You can make it
Homer
be
with the wrecking ball.
Yeah,
but it's all the same fucking thing, really.
It is. It's just people bouncing around. I guess like maybe going through Pirates because I like that reference. Honestly, I don't
think that's a.
It's
signature
samey.
moment.
It's literally a one-trick pony. I think this is a fail. I can't even identify the signature moment.
Maggie showing up to save the day.
Maggie showing up might be the signature moment. Maybe. None of them feel substantial enough. Like I said, I'm confident that if I interviewed anybody walking off of this ride, I was like, what was your favorite part? They would have a hard time.
Yeah. The thing is, like, there are rides that don't particularly have a signature moment because, they just have the sum of its parts are so good.
Yeah.
But this is like kind of the opposite where it's like, I can't find a signature moment, but the sum of its parts suck, so I can't pass this test. It can't pass.
No. So that's a fail.
Fail.
All right, 3 for 7. Okay, now it's starting to normalize. Let's get into the last 3 tests here, but before we do that, let's once again, for the final time, thank our sponsors. And we are back, hopefully, or we were gone for barely any time at all. Anyways, let's get into the last 3 tests to determine the fate of the Simpsons ride. It has 3 for 7. Let's see if we could get this to even debate land. Test number 8, the premature detraculation test. Does this ride finish too soon?
I wish it finished faster.
I did too.
I'm telling you, once they get to that couch, I want it to be over.
I want this ride to be over pretty quick. And for people who get sick on this ride, which is a large majority, they want it to be done instantly. So I actually think this is a fail. I feel confident in saying this.
What do you say is over 4 minutes?
4.5 minutes.
That's not the test.
It's not the test. It isn't, but it should be. There should be there should be a version of this test where it's like, I want this ride to be finished sooner.
It should detraculate a little faster.
It should
detraculate prematurely.
Because part of detraculation is like, am I satisfied by this? And I'm not. It's too much. It's too much.
Yeah, maybe we should alter it. Does this ride finish too soon? Or should it finish faster? I don't know.
I mean, Matt is right. It's not the test. So technically it would be a pass. Is this the test?
I mean, people are waiting a long time for this. Like your average tourist
probably
wants to feel like
they got their money's worth.
Yeah, and you're getting, a bunch of stuff thrown at you for over 4 minutes, and it's loopy, not really loops, but
we are scientists. We have clipboards. We have to be objective. I think it's a pass.
Okay, fine. Yeah,
I regret to inform you that this is a pass.
All right, it's a pass.
Fucking.
We're at 5 now?
That's at 4.
4? Okay.
What was the worst score this show has ever had?
I believe 4.
Monsters Inc.
Monsters and then Transformers, I believe.
Damn. Monsters is a better ride than this. Just FYI. Okay, 4 for 8. Moving on to test number 9, the exit hall test. Do you see people be physically excited getting off of this ride? Do they have that bounce in their step?
I'm physically excited when I get off this ride.
Yeah, but for a different reason.
I can't fucking wait.
I have a funny anecdote from this. I was at Universal, I want to say a week ago, to check out the 60th anniversary tram, which was great. But there was this couple in front of me. They were from out of town. And they were like, well, we got an hour and a half left at the park. What do you think we should do? You want to get on anything again? And then they started running down the rides. And they were like, we could do Jurassic World. And she was like, I might be into that. And she was like, Transformers? And he was like, I don't know. It's a screen. And then she was like, what about The Simpsons? And he was like, absolutely fucking not. And I was sitting behind them. I didn't, but I wish I had the temptation to record them because I was like, this is fucking hilarious. But I was like, I'm going to tell this story on the podcast because she didn't even have the chance to finish the sentence with how quickly he said absolutely fucking not.
How old were these people?
I want to say they were mid to late 30s.
Okay. Because I could see a world where like some kids would have the bounce. But even I think for some kids, like when we went on it yesterday, I thought like I heard like a mom or two like trying to do that like clap kind of thing. Like that was fun, right?
Yeah.
And the kids like, I guess.
Exactly.
I think for most people though, I don't think you get the bounce.
No. Actually, another funny thing they said too after that was like, well, we could just go to Harry Potter Land and, buy some merch. And then the guy was like, I'm not giving these people any more of my money. But he was like, I'm fine. The studio tour was good.
Yeah. And speaking of exit hall for this ride, this exit hall is awful. It really makes you feel like you just got kicked out of a warehouse.
Yeah, it's like they're like, get the fuck out. We've already fooled you. It's a bad ride.
Yeah, you open like it's basically just like a couple just like office building like looking doors that you walk out of.
I should have asked those two people like, hey, I'm so sorry. I have a podcast where we talk about rides. We're about to talk about The Simpsons. Could I just get a clip of you asking if you have that bounce after you walk off of it? Nah, they would have been like, get away from me.
As a matter of like, I don't like when we walked off this ride yesterday, we didn't really say much. I don't know if it's because we wanted to share our thoughts like here on this podcast, but
I kind of went into like a fugue state after I got off of this.
It was kind of like, okay, we did what we had to do.
Yeah, it's one of the few times I've gotten on a ride and off a ride and felt like that was work.
Yeah. And I've gotten off some rides before where I'm like, you know what? I had a good time.
Yeah, I was hoping that would happen, but no. 4 for 9. It's a fail.
It's a fail, yes. And that officially keeps it out of contention, no?
It keeps it out of debate land, correct.
Sorry, Simpsons. You are not a world-class attraction.
What a bummer.
Shock and awe.
What a
Shock
bummer.
and awe.
Honestly, I was getting a little scared there for a second. I was like, oh my God, through the objectiveness of this test, this might actually squeak into debate land or something like that.
The episode that truly does like take away any sort of credibility if we ever even had any.
Yeah. Moving on to test 10, though, we still have a chance to have it higher than Transformers and Monsters Inc. Not to spoil anything for anybody. Those are good episodes, though. If you haven't seen them, you should watch them. Test number 10, the fine wine test. Has this attraction aged well? Has your opinion of the attraction appreciated or depreciated since your first experience? Or if it's a new ride, do you believe it will age well? No, it's aged poorly, like caca. This is the fine caca test. This is no good, bad, smells.
If I'm going to be objective, I would agree.
Okay,
there's a like because here's
why
the
did
thing
you
is
you delivered like that like Werner Herzog? If I would be objective, I agree.
Pretty good, Werner Herzog.
Thank you. I've been working on it. Yeah, this is clearly. I mean, this might be the biggest fail of all the ones we've ever covered in this show.
Yeah, but from a technical standpoint, it seemed to be running fine.
Yeah, but the graphics look like caca.
Although when we went, they were only operating one of the theaters. I know that was because of low demand, but also
yeah, and it's showing its age in a lot of ways. Like the queue's pretty beat up, and just aside from the cosmetic issues I have with it, it's just it doesn't fit within the current technological landscape of theme parks today.
What it represents,
antiquated,
does not age well.
No,
you could easily look to rides like the Simpsons and say, oh, like they've had to course correct from attractions such as these.
Yeah. It's the reason why we made this test for rides like this, where it's just like, okay, I could see it had its day in the sun. It was probably a very small one, maybe one day. But then after that, it's just no longer there. It's just no longer there. And that's okay. We salute you, Simpsons ride. You did what you had to do for some. And to many, you did nothing. But I salute you for the ones that you did please.
Yeah.
I wish it was me. I genuinely do wish that. I wish I liked this ride. I wish I liked every ride I ever got on.
And I will add that it does still, I think, have some value in Hollywood more so than Florida.
Here's also the biggest indicator of this test. And I almost feel like we should put this as part of the test. I've been to Universal Studios Hollywood an obscene amount of times now because it's the closest theme park to me location-wise, and the pass is reasonable price-wise. I have been on the Simpsons ride maybe 3 times. And every time I get off of it, I go, I think I'm good for at least a couple years. And I've seen this ride at 5 minutes, and I still thought, waste of time. That's crazy to me. Because I genuinely do love almost every ride that I get on for the most part. Or if I don't like it, I find something like, I'm like, oh, I enjoyed that a little bit.
Do you think a lot of that has to deal with like, it's entertaining in regards to like the humor and stuff, but it really, at the end of the day, is pretty heartless?
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel that same way about Despicable Me and Minion Mayhem.
There's just no emotional relevance.
Yeah. There's nothing really there for me. I've been on the studio tour like 50 times, maybe even more so.
And that's an hour long.
That's an hour long, and it's the same. It's a lot of people after a while find that ride boring, but there's heart to that. There's a purpose to it. Whereas The Simpsons feels like flailing wildly. So I don't know. I never have a desire to get on this ride, and I think that's the greatest indicator of this thing is aged pretty poorly, at least to me personally. And unfortunately, for all of you who do like this ride, I'm the one judging this test. So if you were here, maybe you could fight me, but you're not. You're not. I'm sure you'd like to be.
Fail.
Fighting me. It's a fail.
Yeah, and that puts it
at
at
4 for 10.
4 for 10. So
congratulations.
Right there with the likes of Monsters Inc. and Transformers.
I've been on those much more times, and I still look forward to getting on those sometimes.
That's a good point. I will end up riding Monsters Inc. a few more times, I'm guessing, across, my life, as well as Transformers.
I'm not always excited to get on Transformers, but there are times when I've been on it and I'm like, you know what? I had a good time that time.
Yeah.
And Simpsons never happened.
At least Transformers took me a few rides to realize, you know what, this isn't actually that good.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. That's exactly, yes. That there was a period where I was like, this ride is amazing. Then I was like, this ride is maybe not that good. And then I was like, oh, you know what? It's okay. And The Simpsons has always been bad. This is bad. This is worse than I remember. Bad. that does it for this episode of For Your Amusement. Once again, look, folks, we had to cover this ride eventually. We don't like being negative. We really don't. But there is nothing I could do here. We tried our best. Anyways, thank you for listening, and if you're watching this as well, make sure you subscribe over at youtube.com/Watcher Podcast, and like the video. And if you're listening, like and subscribe there as well to whatever audio streaming service you're listening to this on. And you can follow the pod over on socials at FYA Pod over on Instagram. And I believe we're starting to do TikTok a little bit now too. And then also our personal socials. I'm at Ryan S. Bergara on Twitter and at Ryan Bergara everywhere else. Byron's at Byron A. Marin across all the socials. But I guess for now, see you later.
I don't know. I can't even think of some Simpsons appropriate. Just cut the fucking tape.
Just cut. Don't!